Hi, this is Terry with Tree Marie Soapworks. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this bar. It's a Taiwan circling swirl technique, and there's 5 partitions, and this is also a palm-free recipe. Stay tuned to the end of the video and I will give you some tips, and today I'm going to give quite a few tips on how I get my bars to look so smooth. Let's get started. First, I added about 1/3 of my water weight in distilled water ice cubes to help it cool down faster, and then I added the rest of my water weight in just cold distilled water. Next, I measure my sodium hydroxide and add that to my water, and I stir that, and you gotta make sure you stir it right away so it doesn't settle to the bottom and get all clumpy, because then it's hard to get broken up. After that, I measure my sodium lactate, and this is just for making the bar a little harder and it releases from the mold a little easier. So I use 1 teaspoon per pound of oils for this, and I set it aside with my cooling lye water. And I just do that so I don't forget to use it. If you're new to soap making, there's an order that I usually follow when I'm making my recipes. I usually start with the lye water and get that cooling, and then next I melt my hard oils. And then while I'm melting my hard oils, I will measure my liquid oils into a pitcher, and I start with my avocado oil, or something that I use less of and it's pretty liquidy. So if I go over, I can take that back out. And then I go to my castor oil, which is thicker, and that is usually easier not to go over. And you notice I use my little bottles to top it off, because if I have that mixture of those oils, I can't really take it back out because they're all mixed together. So I do my olive oil last, and I try not to go over by stopping short and then using my little squeeze bottle to top it off with the weight that I need. Next, I measure my fragrance, and this is Cranberry Salsa from Rustic Essentials, and it is wonderful. Okay, now that my coconut oil is melted, I add my cocoa butter and I stir that until it's melted, or I just microwave it until it's just barely melted. When tempering chocolate to get that shine, there's a way they do it, and the magical temperature they use is 93 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, chocolate gets that film on it. To me, it looks like soda ash, but they call it bloom. It gets a fat bloom, which is cocoa butter. And so when I'm dealing with cocoa butter, I like to keep it around 93 degrees, or a little above or a little below, but I don't like to get it too warm or too cold. So that's why I just try to stir it in to melt it, and then if I need to, I'll microwave it at the end, but I don't microwave it any more than I have to. I just want to thank Joanna from Mad Micas for sending me some gorgeous micas. I'm using 5 of them here. And I'm using all of these at 1.5 teaspoons per pound of oils. And the first one is Snow White mica, and then the next one is a gorgeous one. It's Harold's Purple Crayon. This is my preferred way of mixing colorants. Now with micas, you don't really need to use this way. They mix in pretty well. With oxides, ultramarines, and neons, this is a great way to get out all those clumps, but micas don't usually have problems mixing in. The next color I'm using today is Let Us Entertain You, and green is my favorite color, so I am always looking for good greens. The next color I'm using today is Pumpkinhead, and it very much looks like the color of a pumpkin when it comes out. It's not nearly as red as it looks here, so if you're looking for a good pumpkin orange, try this one. And for some reason, for the last color, my video cut out, and that was the black color, and it was called Wicked. Okay, now that the lye has cooled, I add my sodium lactate, and then I strain it into my oils. Next, I weigh my bowl and the contents, and then I subtract the weight of the bowl off, and I divide that number by 5 to get my 5 equal amounts that I need for splitting my batch. After I have all the calculations done, I stick blend until an emulsion is reached. It looks like I'm banging my stick blender on my glass bowl, and I'm really not. It just looks like it from this view. Okay, next I just used that number that I calculated before and I split my batter 5 ways. Next I just add my colors and I stir them in until they're completely incorporated. For this batch I'm using 6% fragrance, and then I took that number and I divided it by 5. If you don't have your own dividers, I just made these and I made a video showing how I did it, so if you're interested I will put a link to that video at the end of this video. I'm just using this skewer to loosen up the batter and make sure it's flowing smoothly for when I swirl it. I'm using popsicle sticks to swirl this, and I think maybe I should have made my lines a little closer together. When I'm finished with this, I cover it and I preheat the oven to the lowest temperature. For my oven it's 170 degrees Fahrenheit, and I set this in the oven and I turn off the oven and I turn on the oven light, and the heat from the oven light makes it go through gel, and I just keep it in the oven all night with the light on, and then in the morning I turn off the light and let it come to room temperature naturally in the oven, and then I usually wait another day to cut it. When I use this 10-inch mold and I make bars that I have to cut horizontally, I have been just making 9 bars instead of 10, so I'll cut 1 bar off the end and then I'll cut it into 8 more bars horizontally. The reason I do this is because otherwise they would just be 2 inches tall, and to me the proportions look a little short, and so that's what I ended up making them about a little more than 2 1/8, and then I'll have that last bar at the end. And now, as promised, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I make my bars look so smooth, and I'm not going to have time for all the tips that I wrote down, so I will have to continue this next time. I'm going to start with the very beginning of your batch when you're formulating your recipe. When you put your recipe into SoapCalc, the default for your water is 38% water as a percentage of your oil weight. That is a lot of water, and that causes sometimes glycerin rivers, but sometimes I think it's just kind of a grainier looking soap. So I drop my water as a percentage of oil weights down to 25% normally. Like in most all of these videos I use 25%. I've gone down to 20, and 20% is good if your fragrance doesn't accelerate too much and stuff like that, or you're very comfortable with your batch, but normally I just use 25. The next thing I do for making a smooth bar is I use sodium lactate. Sodium lactate is a natural ingredient. It's just from the fermented beets or corn, and it's a salt, a liquid salt, and it just makes the bar harder, it makes it last longer, but the reason why I use it is it makes the soap release from the mold a lot easier, and therefore you get a smoother bar. You know what happens when the soap sticks to the side. Your side of your bar is all messed up. So that would be my next tip, is just using sodium lactate at a rate of 1 teaspoon per pound of oils. The next tip I have for you is to soap at temperatures between 85 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. I used to soap at 120, and that just caused a lot of acceleration, and then I started soaping at room temperature, and the problem with soaping at room temperature was some of my hard oils got hard and they caused steric spots in the final bar. Those are those little white spots you see. I mean, sometimes white spots can be from air bubbles, but sometimes they are from your hard oils starting to harden before the other oils. And to stop that from happening, I just have been using 85 to 95 degrees to make my soap, and it seems like it's working just fine, and I don't get those steric spots throughout my soap. I will continue these tips in the next video. I have quite a few more, and also if you have any questions, please just ask them in the comments, and I will try to address them by responding to you or address them in a video. And thank you to you who have checked out my website and made a purchase. I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching today. And please like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. And I will see you next time. Have a great day.